Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how I can create a procedural gingerbread shader in Blender, so let's get started. First hit Shift A and add a meta ball. Now going to top view and let's press S and Shift Z to scale it on the X and Y axis like this. Now press Shift D and Y to move it down and press S Shift Z to scale it down slightly. Now select this one again and press Shift D, S Shift Z again, and press G Shift Z and move it here. Now press S and X to scale it on the X axis and rotate it like this. Duplicate this one and move it down, rotate it again. Let's position it around here. Now select this one and duplicate it again. Press Y and S Shift Z to scale it down again. Press G and Y again. Move it like this. Go back into object mode, select the mesh and go to the object data properties. Now set the resolution viewport and render to 0.1. With the mesh selected, press Ctrl A, visual geometry to mesh. Now hit Shift A and add a cube. Go into edit mode and go to wireframe and press G and X. Make sure that the origin is here at this edge here. Go back into object mode and scale it up like this. Go back into viewport shading and now shift select the gingerbread man and press N. Go to edit and click on the bool tool drop down. If you don't see this, then you have to go to edit preferences and under add-ons type in bool tool. This is an add-on that comes with Blender by default. Then just enable it. And now let's click on difference. Now we need a mirror modifier and a remesh modifier. I'm remeshing it so that we don't have this seam here. Set the voxel size to 0.075. Now let's save and press Ctrl 2. I don't like how this area looks here, so let's go into edit mode. Select one of these vertices here and click on proportional editing. Press G and Y and scroll with your mouse wheel and move it up. Go back into object mode and let's hit Shift A, add a plane. Now let's scale it up like this, for example. Go into front view by pressing 1 on the numpad and move it down. Press Ctrl to move it like this. Let's go back into top view by pressing 7 on the numpad. Hit Shift A and add a mesh and add a single word. Add single word. If you don't have the option to add a single word, you need to enable add mesh extra objects. This add-on also comes with Blender by default. Disable proportional editing and enable snapping. Set it to face project and now press G and Z to snap the word to the faces here. Let's also enable project individual elements. Now duplicate it and press G and Y and move it down. Duplicate it again, press G and Y and move it down. Go back into object mode and add a skin modifier. And let's press Ctrl 3. Set the render to 3 as well. Now let's shade smooth. Hit Shift A again and add another single word. Press G and Y to move it here. Press E to extrude it a few times, like this. Go back into object mode and again add a skin modifier. Press Ctrl 3 and add a mirror modifier and put that here. Go back into edit mode and enable X-ray and let's adjust this a little more, like this for example. Select all of the vertices except for this one in the middle and subdivide them. And let's adjust this even more, like this. Now enable proportional editing and with this one selected, press Ctrl A to scale it up or down, like this. I think I'm going to leave it somewhere around here. Now let's select the one in the middle and press Ctrl A again and scale that one down as well. Let's turn off snapping and proportional editing and set this back to increment. Let's also turn off X-ray. Select one of these vertices here and duplicate it. Make sure proportional editing is disabled, press Ctrl A and scale it up like this. Let's disable snapping and set it back to increment and disable X-ray. Go to shading and go into rendered view. We also need to go back into object mode and shade this smooth. In the world properties, go to color and select environment texture. I'm going to put a link to the one that I used in the description. Set the strength to 1.5. Now select both of these objects here and click on new. Press Ctrl L, link materials. What this will do is now both objects are using the same material, so as you can see, if I make a change to the color, it will also be used here. I'm going to undo this and add a noise texture. Put it here and plug the factor into the roughness and into the normal. Add a bump node. Put it here and let's use the height. Select the noise texture and press Ctrl T. Use the object output and set the scale to 100. Let's also set the detail to 15. Set the subsurface to 0.3 so that light is shining through the object a little. Select the gingerbread man and click on new. Set the subsurface to 0.01. Add a color ramp. Plug the color into the base color. Bring the black into somewhere around here. And for the color, I'm going to use this color here. Now select the white, and here I'm going to use this color. Plug the color into the roughness and add a math node. Set it to subtract, and let's set the value to 0.625. Add a bump node and plug the normal into the normal. Now we need a mix RGB. Plug the color into the height and duplicate it. Now plug the color in the factor here and into the factor here and into color 2. Duplicate the math node and put that here. Plug the value into the strength and set the value here to 0.5. Duplicate the color ramp and press F3 and type in reset node. Plug the color into the value here. Let's also take the color and plug it into color 1 here. Select the white and type in 0.5. Now we need a Voronoi texture. Plug the distance into the factor and set it to smooth F1. Set the scale to 2.5. Now with the Voronoi texture selected, press Ctrl T and let's use the object output and select these two nodes and move them somewhere over here. Hit Shift A and add a noise texture. Plug the factor into color 1 here and set the scale to 100 and the detail to 15. Now let's Shift and right click drag and plug the vector in here. Duplicate this color ramp and plug the color into the factor and into color 2. Duplicate the math node and set it to add. Now plug the value into the factor. Select the two mix RGB nodes and bring them over here and disconnect them by Control and right click dragging over them. Now plug the color into color 1 and this color into the value here and this one in here. Duplicate them again, put them here. Disconnect them again and plug this one into color 1 and this one into color 2. Select this color ramp and duplicate it and plug the color into all of the factors of the mix RGB nodes. Put the white to somewhere around here and add a Musgrave texture. Let's set the scale to 2.5 and the detail to 15. Plug the height into the factor. Now let's use the vector here again. Select these two nodes again and bring them over here. Let's Shift and right click drag again. Select the Musgrave texture and press Ctrl Shift D to duplicate it and keep it connected here. Plug the height into the color 1 of this mix RGB and this one. Let's move this up and duplicate the mix RGB again. Plug the color into color 2 here and here. Duplicate the Warner texture here and bring it over here. Set the scale to 100. Plug the distance into the factor and color 2. Let's save again, just to be sure, and set the smoothness to 0. Take the vector and plug it in here. Add another noise texture and put that here. Take the vector again and plug it in here. Set the scale to 100 and the detail to 15. Take the factor and plug it into color 1. Duplicate the Musgrave texture, take this vector and plug it in here. Set it to 40 and let's set the scale to 15. Set the detail to 2 and duplicate this color ramp here. Connect the height to the factor. Bring the white into somewhere around here and the black here. Now connect the color to color 2 of this mix RGB, this one here. I forgot to set the scale of this Musgrave texture to 50, so let's do that. I think I'm going to select this object again. If you can't see the shader nodes, press A and delete on the numpad. Now copy the material here, and I'm going to make this green. Now let's select the plane and click on New. For this I'm going to use a free texture that I downloaded. You can find a link to that in the description. Once you've downloaded and unzipped it, select the principled BSDF and press Ctrl-Shift-T. Paste in the location of the folder here and press Enter. Now press A and Enter. Instead of the normal map, I'm going to use a bump node. So hit Shift A and type in bump. Let's use the height again and set the strength to 0.25. Delete the displacement, we don't need that. Back in layout node, let's save again and hit Shift A and add a camera. Now position the view where you want it and press Ctrl-Alt-0. Press G, set to move it like this. Hit Shift A and add an empty plane axis. Let's go to snapping again and select face project and turn it on. Press G and Ctrl and position it where you want it. Hit Shift A again, add an empty plane axis. Go up here and select face project. Press G and Ctrl and position it where you want it. I'm going to put it around here. Go up here and enable depth of field. Select the camera. Go to the object area properties, enable depth of field and select the empty. Set the blades to 16 and the f-stop to 0.1. For the render properties, I recommend that you use cycles and set the max samples to 512. I recommend that you disable denoise. Now let's go to color management. Set the view transform to filmic and the look to very high contrast. If you don't want to have to set the settings every time, you can go up here and go to defaults and save a startup file. I would not recommend that you do that now, but if you have a new scene, just set it to filmic and very high contrast and change everything else that you want to change. Then the next time you start Blender, it will already have applied these settings and changes. You can get my startup file for free through the link in the description if you are interested. Select the plane and go into rendered view and press R and Z and rotate it slightly, like this for example. I just saw this weird spot on the texture here, so let's press G and Shift Z to hide it. Go to the output properties and set a resolution that you need. You can also select one up here. For the file format I'm going to use JPEG. You can of course use PNG if you want to. Now let's save again and press F12 to render the image. If you liked this tutorial, you're probably also going to like the one that is on screen now. I'll see you next time.